Step number 1, always and forever, is to take out the greatest common factor. This is like reverse distribution. You're going to divide all your terms by something and pull that out to the front. So sometimes I think about it as reverse distribution. I was thinking my arrow keys were going to work, but they don't want to work today either. Finding the greatest common factor. So, oops, hello. The factors of 12 are 1 times 12 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 4 is 12. Sometimes we do it like this. So the factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Because when you multiply those together, you get 12, right? Same thing with 18. If you make a little T-chart and you put 18 at the top, you can just do 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, and 6 brings you back around. The common numbers there are 6. So we could take out a 6 out of both 12 and 18. The greatest common factor of those two things is the 6. Okay. There's my chat. It's amazing how sometimes it pops up and sometimes it disappears. If you're working with variables, you want to take out the biggest exponent, the smallest exponent. So if I have a with an exponent of 3 and a and an exponent of 5, I've got 3 a's that can be taken out. So the greatest common factor is a cubed. Okay. Hopefully this is a review and you remember this a little bit. It'll make more sense as we go to practice. So if we factor out our greatest common factor over here on the right side, on the blue side, we want to find our greatest common factor and put it outside the parentheses. So the greatest common factor kind of undistributes back out. So if I've got 25 and I've got 15, the factors of 25 are 1 and 25, and then 5 and 5. And the factors of 15 are 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. So my greatest common factor is a 5. And then a squared and a, this a to the 1 power is my smallest exponent. So that's what I divide by. 25 divided by 5 is 5. A squared divided by a is a. So I end up with 5a times 5a plus 3. If you are still confused after we finish the next page, you can go back and watch this video. It's 12 minutes and 41 seconds. You probably won't have to watch all of it. Okay. So now it's time to participate a little bit. If we look at question number 1, and maybe if this will move. There we go. We've got variables here. So I've got an x to the 5th power and an x to the 3rd power. The 3 is the smaller exponent, so we're going to take that out. X, why is that not writing on there? X to the 3. Oh, it is writing. That's outside my parentheses. So I'm going to divide by x cubed and divide by x cubed. This is going to be just 1, right? So I'm going to be left with x, be left with 1. And over here, I'm going to be left with x squared. So if I take that x cubed out, I'm left with x squared and 1, right? We're just finding the greatest common factor. What about number 2? What's the greatest common factor here? What can I divide both of those by? 2, absolutely. So if I take out a 2, my 2 goes outside. And then what's inside? 2x divided by 2 is x, and 8y divided by 2 is 4y. Take a minute and try 3 and 4. What can you divide both of those terms by? What can you divide both of those terms by? And then put it in the chat. What can you divide both 10a to the 4th power and 4 by? Absolutely. So if I divide both of them by 2, my 2 goes to the outside of the parentheses. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then I've got a 2 over here. What can you divide in number 4? Put that in the chat. What can you divide both of those by? I definitely see a 2. Can I divide by anything bigger than 2? 4. Absolutely, William. So we're going to do the 4. Then I also have these variables. So I want to use the smaller exponent of the variable that appears in both terms. So that's going to be k to the 5th. K to the 5th. K to the 5th. Whatever you're dividing by, that's what goes outside the parentheses. K, that's a 5th, not a 2. And then 4 crosses out, and k to the 7 divided by k to the 5 is going to give me k squared. We're subtracting those. 7 minus 5 is 2. Hopefully you've already done that. And then 36 divided by 4 is going to be 9. And the k5 and the k5 cancel out. Notice I'm not putting any addition or subtraction sign in here because over on the left side in my questions, I just have the word and. So we can put the word and here. Try number 5 on your own. And when you think you have the greatest common factor, put it in the chat. So if you're not sure, you can do what I did. Find the factors of 18, find the factors of 42. You'll notice on the left side, I just go down the number line. 1 times 18 is 18, 2 times 9 is 18, 3 times 6 is 18. In 42, it's the same process with 1, 2, and 3. 42 divided by 4 isn't a whole number, so I don't use 4. 42 divided by 5 is not a whole number, so I don't use 5. 42 divided by 6 is 7, so I got to use that one. Once these bottom two numbers get close to each other, you don't need to do it anymore. So what's the biggest number that appears in both sets of numbers? Absolutely, that's 6. Yeah. So in my head, when I make these tables, I start with this 18, right? And then I start with 1. 18 divided by 1. So I'm dividing by these numbers. And then my answer is the other side, is the right side of the T-chart. So 18 divided by 1 is 18. And then 18 divided by 2 is 9. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And I'm just literally going down the number line. If I did the 42 and I showed all of the work that both works and doesn't work, it would be 42 divided by 1 is 42. 42 divided by 2, that's just the next number on the number line, right? Is 20. Oh, that should be 21, not 24. I don't know what I was thinking about over here. 21. And then 42 divided by 3, I had to pull out my calculator for, which is 14. 42 divided by 4 was 10.5. I don't need to use that because it's not a whole number. Greatest common factors only work with whole numbers. So then I could put 5. I know in my head that 42 divided by 5 is not a whole number, so I'm not going to use it. 42 divided by 6 is 7. So that's how I ended up with only those 4 numbers in my table. Because when I did either the multiplication or the division, whichever way your brain looks at it, the 4 and the 5 I didn't need to use. Does that help answer the question, Daniel?
Kind of, but I mean, like, when you answer the question and you put it like in parentheses. Yeah. Where's the second number coming from?
I gotcha. All right, so let's do a couple more examples and see if we can make it make sense. So I've got the 6, right? And then I've got x to the 5th and x squared. So I'm going to use the x squared and the x squared, right? What is 18 divided by 6? 3. And then x to the 5th divided by x squared. When you divide exponents, you really subtract them. So 5 minus 2 is 3, x cubed. That's the inside because the outside is our greatest common factor, 6x squared. So this common thing that we pulled out, that goes to the outside. And then when you do the division, this is literally a fraction bar. 18 divided by 6 is 3, and x to the 5th divided by x squared is x cubed. So then for the other side, we've got 42 divided by 6, which is 7, and that appears here, right? So the other place those appears in our tables. So 42 divided by 6 is 7, and x squared divided by x squared is just 1. So inside my parentheses is what's left over after I do the division.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was like, okay, because I was parsing for it. I just put the 7.
Okay. It's going to make more sense as we do more examples, especially on the second side. So let me increase this a little bit. Underneath here is just 12x. So 12x, 6, and 12x squared. What can I divide all of those by? What's the greatest common factor? 6, absolutely. There's no x in that second term, so we can only use the 6. So the 6 is going to go to the outside, and then we're going to divide everything by 6. So 12 divided by 6 is 2, and I keep the x. And then 6 divided by 6, I know that's hard to read, is just 1. And because these all have commas between them, I'm just putting commas in the parentheses. And then 12 divided by 6 is going to be 2, and I've got to keep the x squared. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to work our way up to the hard ones. Let's start with the easier ones. Somebody who thinks they've got it, talk me through question number 7. What would we do here? I do. So what is the GCF of 18 and 12? 6. And if we're not sure about it, we can do 18. 18 divided by 1 is 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9. I'm just going down the number line. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 18 divided by 4 isn't even. 18 divided by 5 isn't even, and that brings me back to 6, so I know I'm done. And then we can do the same thing with 12. 12 divided by 1 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Mikhail is 100% correct. We see the biggest number we see in both charts is a 6. So that's going to go on the outside, and that's what we're going to divide by. So then once you do that division, what do you get when you do 18R divided by 6? 3R for sure. And then keep that minus sign. So in 7 through 12, we're actually going to have operations in the middle of our parentheses. And then you do this fraction. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Try the next 2 on your own, and when you get an answer, put it in the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you put the greatest common factor in the front, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you
So you want to look at the numbers and the variables separately. That's a great question. So if we look at just the 25 and the 10, what's the greatest common number factor? What can I divide both 25 and 10 by? What's the biggest number?
5.
5, absolutely. So we can do 5 and 5. So then we look at the variables. I've got x squared and I've got x. You want to divide by the smaller exponent. So I've got x squared and I've got x to the 1 power. So I'm going to divide by x to the 1. And you can put that little invisible 1 in there if it helps you out. Some people like to look at it until they get confident about it. And then others are like, well, what's the point? It's just a waste of my life, right? So then we're going to take this common factor and that goes out in front. We've undistributed this basically. The 5x goes to the front, and then we've got to do our division. So 25 divided by 5, do the numbers first, is 5. And then x squared divided by x to the 1, we're dividing, so we're really going to subtract. 2 minus 1 is 1. So you can put that little 1 there if it makes you happy. And then we're going to keep this sign. That doesn't ever change. And then we go to the second term. So numbers first and then variables. What do you get when you do that division? 2 for sure. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then we're going to subtract those. So x to the first power divided by x to the first power, that's the exact same thing. So that's just 1. It just kind of goes away. They cancel out.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Somebody I haven't heard from. Justin's got number 9. So I'm going to get a new color. Use bright red. So we can take out a 9. And our smallest variable exponent is n cubed. So 9n cubed is what we're going to undistribute. It's what we're going to divide by. 18 divided by 9 is 2, and n to the 4th divided by n to the 3rd is n, because 4 minus 3 is 1. Keep that minus sign, and then 27 divided by 9 is 3, and that's that. And Justin, I think that is exactly what you put in the chat. Sweet. Okay. If you do these partially, like say you got 5 and then 5x squared plus 2x. If you got that answer because you took out the 5 but not the x, then you just take out the x in the next step and you get down here. So if you don't get the greatest common factor the first time around, you can take things out in multiple attempts. So try 10 and 11. I want to hear from somebody new, somebody I haven't heard from in the chat. What can I divide both 4b and 12a by? Be careful, there's a little tricky trap here if you're not careful. 4, absolutely. Are there any variables that they have in common?
No.
There are not. So don't be tempted to take out an A or a B. A's and B's are different, apples and bananas. If you like one, you might not like the other. So the 4 goes to the outside, and 4b divided by 4 is b, and 12a divided by 4 is 3a. Okay. About what? So you're going to take these as separate things, and you want to do 4 divided by 4 is 1. So like you could put an invisible coefficient of 1 there. I'm just dividing. And then over here, the 12 divided by 4, I'm just taking that fraction by itself, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. Does that help? Yeah. So sometimes when they get easy, you overthink them and you make them harder than they need to be. And that happens. I looked at one the other day where it was factoring and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But I was just overthinking it. You guys are catching on fast. What about 11? Three, absolutely. Can I take out any x's?
No.
I cannot because there's no x's over here, right? In the 21 term. So I can't take out any x's. So 3 goes on the outside. And what's left on the inside? 6 divided by 3 is 2. And I keep all of my variables because I didn't take any out. Keep the plus sign. Always keep your operations. And then 12 divided by 3 is 4. Keep the variable. Keep the subtraction. And what's 21 divided by 3?
7.
7. Perfect. I'm all for using the calculator. I am tutoring a college student right now, though, and her professors will not let her use a calculator. So know that, like, you want to try to push yourselves to do as much mental math as you can, but you also want to get the right answer. So use the calculator for a tool, but not for a crutch, right? You want to use it for a tool, but not for a crutch. Use as much calculator as you need to, but not more than you have to. All right, last question. This looks like a monster, but if we take it one step at a time, it'll be super easy. Look at the 36 and the 6. What's common to both of them? 6, absolutely. So we're going to divide by 6 and divide by 6. And then we look at the x's. So I've got x to the 4 and x to the 5. Which one has the smaller exponent? X to the 4th. So I'm going to divide by x to the 4th and x to the 4th. And then I'm going to look at the y's. I've got y to the 5 and y to the 3. Which one is the smaller exponent? Y to the 3. So I'm going to divide by y to the 3 and y to the 3. That's what goes outside my parentheses. 6x to the 4th, y to the 3rd. Then we do our division, again, one thing at a time. 36 divided by 6 is 6. X to the 4th divided by x to the 4th. Those are exactly the same thing, so they just cancel out. And then y to the 5th divided by y to the 3rd, that's going to be 5 minus 3. That's the math I'm doing in my head, that invisible stuff. So I've got y squared because 5 minus 3 is 2. Keep that plus sign. 6 divided by 6, hopefully you're already saying that to yourself, just cancels out. What do I get when I do x to the 5th divided by x to the 4th? The invisible math is 5 minus 4, which is 5 minus 4 is 1. So x to the 1. You can put that 1 if it makes you happy, okay? If it makes it more clear to you. And then y to the 3 divided by y to the 3 just cancels out. And again, you can either put that exponent of 1 or you can erase it. It doesn't matter if it's there or not. How do we feel about those, guys? It looks a little crazy when I zoom it out and see all the work on top of itself.
It's starting to make sense.
Good. So let's do some practice. Slide number 6 says no peeking, but slide number 7 has all of our answers, right? So if you missed something that I did, the answers are here. You're welcome to go back to it. And on slide 4, there's that video. So if it still's not making sense after you go do the practice, you can definitely go watch that video. Or while you're doing the practice, you can go do the video. What I'd like to do is put you in breakout rooms and have you do this first little quiz to see if you guys can help each other make sense of it. So this lesson 1, Schoology check, is what I'd like for you to do now. Hopefully it's open. I think it's 7 questions, maybe 8 questions. How long do you think you need for 7 or 8 questions? It is the You hate algebra too. Why, Mikhail?
I was in a test. I looked nothing like the notebook.
So which question are you looking at? So if there's not a second attempt in there, I can make a second attempt. That's not a problem.
I only got one.
Oh no. Is there a second attempt? Sure, possible points assessed and random time limit. No, you are not, because you need to be in Algebra 2 trig. You have such a fine mind. Yeah, Algebra 2 trig. That's because we're doing this whole stupid virtual thing. If I had you face to face, you would have loved trig. I love trig. It's one of my favorite things. So I did just open a second attempt. It's good for me to know that there was not a second attempt on there. That always frustrates me. You went through it really fast, though. So you've got 9 more minutes. Go back through. Were Jaquan or Amin talking to you at all, or were they pretty quiet today? They're quiet. Okay. So, like, open it up. Let's look at number 1. Because you can use some process of elimination here. And everybody else who's in here, if you want to look at question number 1 with us, you're welcome to. If you want to mute us, you can mute us for the next 8 minutes too, for if my voice is bugging you. All right, so just look at the numbers, the 2, the 6, and the 10. Is there a common number factor? 2. So which answer choice can you eliminate? It's definitely not the third one, right? That says x cubed y squared, because you definitely need to have a number at the front. So now look at the x's. I've got x cubed, x to the 4th, and x to the 5th. Which exponent is smallest of all the x's? X cubed. So I definitely need an x cubed. So if it's not the third answer choice, because that doesn't have a 2, it can't be the 4th answer choice, because that doesn't have an x. And it can't be the second answer choice, because that has an x5, and I know it needs an x3.
Our answer choices different.
Oh, they might be scrambled.
Yeah.
Are they scrambled? Oh, that stinks. So you need a coefficient of 2. You need a number that's a 2. So you can eliminate the 2 choices that don't have a 2, and then you need, or the 1 choice that doesn't have a 2. And then you need an x to the 3rd power. So you can eliminate the choices that don't have the x to the 3rd power. There's only 1 choice with a 2 and an x to the 3rd power. That's your right answer.
2x cubed y squared.
Mm-hmm. So then if we look at the next one, this is the whole completely factored out thing. So is there a number that I can take out? Do you have w cubed plus 3w?
W cubed plus 3w.
Uh-huh. What can I take out of both of those? Can I divide them both by?
1.
1 w?
W can be W2, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So if I know I can take a common w out, there's only 1 answer choice that has a w outside the parentheses.
W squared plus 3.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say 3w squared.
So what about question number 3? What can I take? What number can I take out of 54, 9, and 54?
9.
9 for sure. Can I take out any letters? Are there any letters in all 3 terms?
N.
N. And what's the smallest exponent for all of the n terms?
2.
2. So I want to take out 9n squared. Then you must have gotten that one right.
Yes, all the way that makes sense.
So let's look at question 4. What can I take out and put outside the parentheses? What can I divide both of those by?
18.
18 what? Is there a variable in common between the two of them? H. So I need to take the 18h out. And if you do that, what's left over? What's 18gh divided by 18h?
1G.
1g. Mm-hmm. And then minus what? 18h divided by 18h is anything divided by itself is 1 for sure. So you're going to have 18h on the outside of the parentheses and then g minus 1 inside the parentheses. The next one is tough. There's a lot to that one. What do you think you need to do first? Mm-hmm. So what's the common factor from 8, 28, and 4? Mm-hmm. So you can eliminate all the choices that don't have a 4 at the beginning. Probably. And then we got to look at the A's. So what's the smallest A exponent? Mm-hmm. So I need 4a squared. And then what's the smallest B exponent? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I got to click on 4a squared B squared. And then I got to figure out what's left over at the end. Exactly. So the 4a squared B squared is outside the parentheses. So inside the parentheses has got to be one of those two choices that have parentheses in them. I agree, 100%. So that looks like a super intimidating problem until you just start breaking it down into its little tiny pieces. And we're going to do the exact same thing with question number 6. Start with your coefficients, go to your variables, do the variables one at a time. I don't think so. I think they're both prime. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have 2 boxes clicked in number 5. The 4a squared B squared is the common factor. That's what would go outside the parentheses. And then the one that we just said with the plus 1. I'm glad you're listening, Sammy. So what if we go to number 6? We said 5 and 2 is prime. You can divide them by 1. When you divide by 1, you just get the same thing. So it's kind of unnecessary. So if 5 and 2 don't have a common factor, they just stay inside the parentheses as 5 and 2. You look at the A's. Do we have A's in both terms or just one? Just one. So I can't take out an A. Do we have B's in both terms? So what's the smallest exponent for the B? 1. So we're going to take out a B to the first power. So that eliminates 2 answer choices. And then how many C's can I take out? C to the 5th, 5 C's. Absolutely. So we're down to what are 2 choices, B, C to the 5th, and B, C to the 5th. And then what about the parentheses? Which one of those is better? Plus 2. I agree. Not the 2b, just the 2. Yep. So everybody will come back in about 15, 16 minutes, and we'll kind of do exactly what we just did together with them. So hopefully you won't be bored. And Brianna, yes, definitely. I'll explain question number 4. I'll explain all of them. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you had some good discussion in your rooms. Talked about some of them. Once everybody's back in, I would like to go over all of them. So if you got them correct, bear with me. And if you got them incorrect, I did make a second attempt. So you should be able to go back in once you submit and see what you got wrong and do a second attempt to get it all right. I think we're waiting for 3 people to come back, 4 people to come back. Trying to finish up their last problems, probably. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and let's review those. Like I said, there is a second attempt. So if you submitted, you can definitely do a second attempt. See if I can get my chat back up. Yes, it worked. All right. So if I forgot to start recording, that makes me sad. So question number 5, also a common problem, mostly because it looks super intimidating. Okay. One thing that Algebra 2 is going to teach you how to do is look at intimidating problems and break them up into pieces. Okay. This is a life skill. You're probably never going to ever have to do this in real life, right? I am perfectly well aware of that. But something you will 100% have to do is take a big problem and break it down into little tiny pieces. That's what we're practicing right here. We're just using weird numbers and factors to do it. So we're going to look at the numbers first, 8, 28, and 4. Pretend everything else is invisible. What can I divide 8, 28, and 4 all by? If we're not sure, we can do our charts. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. We can do 28, which is 1 and 28 and 2 and 14. 3 doesn't go into 28, but 4 and 7, 5, 6, that's it. And then I've got 4 over here, 1 and 4. So what number do you see in all of those charts? You see a 4? So a 4 has to come out. Then I look at all of the A's. I just look at them one at a time. I've got a to the 4th, a to the 3rd, and a squared. Which one is the smallest exponent? A squared. So I'm going to take out a squared. Then I'm going to look at the B's. So I've got b to the 4th, b to the 3rd, and b squared. I've got a b in every term, and the b squared is the smallest. So we're going to take out a b squared. So we're going to divide all of those by 4a squared, b squared. 4a squared, b squared, right? That means my 4a squared, b squared has to be out in front. That's what I undistributed, right? So now I got to figure out what's in the middle. So I'm going to go get another color just to make my life easier, and I'm bored looking at red. So if I look at my A's, what's the invisible math I do there? What do I do with the 4 and the 2? Add them or subtract them? Lovely said 2. So 4 minus 2, that's going to get, oh, I forgot to do the 8 and the 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then a squared. Then I do the B's. 4 minus 2 again. Got a lot of 2's. Keep that sign. I want to subtract. And then 28 divided by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7. A cubed divided by a squared. My invisible math is 3 minus 2. So that gives me an A. And then b cubed and b squared, that's 3 minus 2, which gives me a B. In this last term, I need a plus something, right? I can't get rid of that plus. 4 divided by 4 is 1. A squared divided by a squared is 1. And b squared divided by b squared is 1. It's, again, this plus 1 that most people mess up on. This guy is the most common incorrect answer. It's a lot of chicken scratch. Did that make sense? As we practice, we'll get better. It got so quiet all of a sudden. Sammy, thank you for the yes. All right.
That makes sense.
Good. Last question. I need somebody else to talk me through it. My voice is giving out. What do I do? William says, I could not do number 6. We need to help William out. So first step is to look at those whole numbers, those coefficients. Can I divide 5 and 2 by anything? No. So then I look at the A's. So I've got an A here. Do I have an A in the second term? Again, the answer is no. So then I look at the B's. So my numbers didn't yield anything. The A didn't yield anything. What about the B's? I've got B squared and B. What's the smallest exponent for B squared and B? Just that B1? That's the smallest variable. So then we look at the C's. So I've got C11 and C5. The C5 is the smallest variable, right? That's a B, by the way, not a 6. So C to the 5th and B, C to the 5th. So you can eliminate these two answer choices because they didn't take out the right common factor, right? So definitely use those tools. Take out the common factor and then eliminate the answer choices that don't work. So now we got to do the division. So let me get a different color so we can see it a little more easily in all of my chicken scratch. The 5 and the A come down, right? The B's, B squared divided by B, that's 2 minus the invisible 1, gives me B. And then C11 divided by C to the 5th, that's 11 minus 5. So 11 minus 5 is 6, C to the 6th. Again, this is inside our parentheses. We need to bring the plus sign straight down. We've got the B, C to the 5th on the outside. Just with that amount of work, I can eliminate this first answer choice, right? We can still do the work. The B's cancel out, the C to the 5th cancel out, and I'm left with a 2. And that confirms my answer choice. And the answer to the question in the private chat is